Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to Thursday. We are reading with permission from Simon & Schuster, Planet of the Pies, Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs 3. This is written by Judy Barrett, and the illustrations this time are by Isidra Moniz. Now, we've been talking about what's realism, and what just absolutely cannot ever happen, or fantasy. And we've been looking at kind of what the difference is. Yesterday, after we finished reading Pickles to Pittsburgh, I asked you if you've noticed anything different about the colors of the illustrations when we're going from realism to fantasy. So pay attention to that today, and we'll talk about it again once we are done with the story. Here we go. Planet of the Pies, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 3. It was Tuesday evening. We were watching TV with Grandpa. He picked up the newspaper and was shocked when he saw the front page headline. He held it up to show us. Astronauts land on Mars. Speculation as to what or who they will find there. Henry and I looked at each other in disbelief. I asked Grandpa what he thought they'd find on Mars. Henry said he hoped it would be aliens. Grandpa said we'll have to wait and see, and if it's aliens, he hoped they'd be friendly ones. Moments later, a breaking news alert appeared on the TV. A noticeably startled reporter blurted out, "We interrupt this program for some earth-shaking news. We've just been informed that astronauts have discovered a thick, glutinous substance on Mars, both on the ground and falling from the sky." Here's a crazy thought. Could it be pie filling? That'd be pretty weird. Stay tuned and we'll have an exclusive, first-of-its-kind interview with our astronauts live from Mars. Henry and I jumped up and down, yelling about how much we love pie and wondering why it can't rain pie here on Earth. We told Grandpa we wanted to go to Mars for our vacation this summer. He said he didn't think it was possible because it's a very long trip. We don't have a spaceship and we're not astronauts. Henry said he'd like to become an astronaut and fly to Mars in a spaceship where he could eat lots of pie and meet aliens. I said I'd be happy just eating pie here on Earth. Grandpa reminded us that we have some pie in the fridge. Henry reminded Grandpa that it wasn't Martian pie and wondered what that would taste like. Grandpa said maybe we'd all get to find out someday, but enough about Mars and pie for now. It was time to go to bed. We kissed Grandpa goodnight. He wished us sweet dreams, and we scampered upstairs. Grandpa sat down to watch the rest of the breaking news. Then he dozed off and dreamt about a most unusual place. To my great surprise, I found myself on Mars, all suited up as mission commander, along with my crew of fellow astronauts. It had been a long ride, and we were glad to have finally landed safely. We climbed out of our spaceship cautiously and surveyed the landscape for any signs of life. We could hardly believe our eyes. What we saw was pie, and lots of it. It was all over the place and even raining down from the sky. Despite the adverse weather conditions, we set up our camera for TV transmission. Pie splattered onto the lens. It was also on our suits, our boots, and our helmets. It tasted awfully good. The TV interview was about to start. I wiped the pie off the lens. We looked pretty messy. And when we were asked what we had found so far, we all yelled out, Pie! I thought, first it's meatballs and chew and swallow, and now it's pie on Mars. In the distance, we saw a group of umbrella-carrying Martians coming toward us. There were tall ones and short ones and some with strange pets. They were all mumbling. The reporter asked about the approaching Martians and what they were saying. It was a peculiar sounding language, lots of jumbled up consonants. We were puzzled as to what they were trying to tell us, but they appeared to be friendly. I listened carefully, and something about that peculiar sound rang a loud bell. I had taken Martian in high school instead of Spanish or French. When I told this to my crew, they were amazed and relieved. So were the Martians. They handed us a book titled Martian into English in 12 hours or less. It really came in handy for my buddies. The Martians said they'd been waiting for years for us to come and visit them. They had headed toward Earth several times, but they got scared at the last minute and flew right back to Mars. Now here we were on Mars, and here they were with this annoying pie problem. It has started raining pie about 6 months ago, between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., just in time for dessert. They desperately needed help. It was just too much pie. They were stepping in it and dragging it into their homes on their feet, and their space cars got stuck in it. This was definitely a huge problem and the last thing we thought we'd find on Mars. But we said we'd help them figure out a solution, and we did. They took us on a tour in their double-decker space bus. They drove in and around the pie, pointing out their homes, schools, parks, Martian monuments, and natural wonders. We saw just how much pie had piled up on the ground. They had built walls, houses, mountains, and sculptures with it, but it was apparent they couldn't keep this up. What they caught on their plates between 5 and 7 they ate for dessert, but the situation was most definitely getting out of hand. The Martians prepared quite an unusual feast for us that first night. They even held a pie-eating contest for dessert. And guess who won? They put us up at the Mars Motel. The next morning, we all got together to discuss the pie problem. I'd been thinking about it all night and had come up with an idea. I suggested catching the pies, exporting them back to Earth in boxes, and selling them. We'd be partners in a pie business and would call it Martian Pie, Tastes Out of This World. They really liked that. But how would we catch the pies? I recommended constructing giant nets. The pies would land safely, and we could slide them off and put them in boxes. Everyone agreed that this was a wonderful idea and a fine solution to the pie problem. And so our joint venture officially began. We brought samples of the pies back to Earth for scientific analysis to make sure they passed our safety codes. And they did. So we packaged them and shipped them off everywhere. And I mean absolutely everywhere. Grandpa awoke from his dream the next morning to see more breaking news on the TV. The reporter said that the thick, glutinous substance that he thought might be pie filling was just wishful thinking. It was actually unusually thick and colorful Martian rain. He apologized for the error. The front page headline read, "No pie on Mars." just bad weather. Under it was a picture of the astronauts. Henry and I noticed the resemblance to Grandpa and asked him, "Is that you in the picture?" "How could it be?" he said. "I wasn't on Mars. I was asleep in my chair." After dinner that evening, we all watched TV while Grandpa served us pie for dessert. "I bet this tastes a lot better than Martian pie," said Henry. "I'll bet it does," said Grandpa proudly, "because I made it myself." All right, boys and girls, so let's talk a little bit about the realism and the fantasy in this story. And if you want to go back and look at the other stories from earlier in the week, that's totally okay too. So when I asked you before if you noticed anything different with the colors in the illustrations, if you notice when we get to the more realistic or the realism part of the stories, or things that can actually happen in real life, do we have a lot of color in these illustrations? We don't, do we? They're pretty much black and white. And look at this. When we're in Grandpa's dream, look at all these beautiful colors. So all of this fantasy, we have all of these colors in the fantasy, don't we? And that's pretty cool for this kind of a story. It gives us another clue about what's actually happening in the story. It helps our eyes make a connection to our brain to go, "Oh, I figured it out." Isn't that amazing? I think it is. All right, boys and girls, we are going to sign off from this story, and then you will have your exit ticket in just a moment.